Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast with me, Imperial Dane. And today I have for you a 1 vs 1 on Langres. Yes, indeed, we will be returning to Langres now after some time away from it, having received a rather excessive dose of Langres. But no more. We shall be returning to this map, of course, divided through by a road on several points per car, sort of protecting this road, of course protecting some dead zones there, covering against fire. And we also do have these sort of clusters of farm buildings right here. This one, for example, being the more covering one, able to cover numerous points and rather dominate the area. We also have some here, but at the same time, though, there's per cars, there's different bits that rather make it harder for them to sort of get a great area coverage, although one shouldn't underestimate them either if used properly. Let us go have a look at our opponents then. And in the southern corner we are seeing Tommyreloaded. No idea who this chap is, except he's level 10, so yes indeed it won't be a high level match. Haven't been getting any of those as such really. But here he is, Tommyreloaded of the Americans, 4th Infantry Division. Opposing them shall be Mr. Amagand of the 2nd Panzer Division. And let us get right to it, Begin. And so far a bit quiet. Barracks going up. We'll probably see a Wehrmacht quarters from Amagand. Yes indeed, not really much else they can build though, so it's a bit hard for them to actually build anything else. I'd be rather surprised if the Wehrmacht suddenly appeared with a weapon support center. That might mean foul play or something's gone terribly wrong. 2nd American Engineer Team heading to the east. Pioneers working hard on that Wehrmacht quarters. Could possibly that Amagand has issued some sort of threat as to being relocated to the eastern front, who knows. Riflemen on the way. Something certainly also on the way from the Wehrmacht quarters, as that red flashing light attests to. Trouble is, what is it? Could be an MG42, could be a bike Wehrmacht or Volksgrenadiers, even a sniper, although snipers might be a bit over the top. But so far not much else. 2nd Panzer Division making its way. Had a mix of Panthers and Panzer Force, although some of the Panzer Force were a bit older. But at least it had a full Panzer regiment. Other divisions like the 21st actually didn't, and they only had Panzer Force to rely on. But there we go. An MG42 team as the beginning. No Volksgrenadiers, no infantry. We'll of course have to see, perhaps we will be taking up positions in the building. No, right next to it, behind a fence. Hiccup right there. Riflemen moving towards north, taking the munitions point right there. While riflemen are engineers heading straight for this point. And rather interesting, I do believe this MG42 is in fact covering this strategic point, which rather means this fuel point won't be coming under the sway of the Americans right away. Although I might be proved wrong just this very moment. Riflemen are advancing. But then again, the MG42 can't actually see this far, I just remember. When the MG42 has a long range, you actually also need to be able to see the target, and he rather realizes something's going on. Perhaps seeks cover inside the building. Pioneers advancing on these engineers, apparently forgetting all about the west. Gunning down the Pioneers. Riflemen are doing nothing, but there we go, they are advancing. And of course, while in the building, they do get increased line of sight, which of course means their range will be put to much better use. Volksgrenadiers opening up, more riflemen moving in. These Volksgrenadiers are in a rather shabby position compared to the riflemen, who are in heavy cover, and they only have a small wooden wheelbarrow. There you go, MG42 sets up, and the riflemen at the same time though are charging across the open ground, hoping to get the surprise on the German forces, but no, running straight into an MG42 rarely constitute a good kind of surprise. And with very minimal losses to the Wehrmacht, this rather turned out fortunately for Mr. Amagand and his 2nd Panzer Division Panzer Grenadiers of the motorized kind. As they would have been the ones to actually get heavy machine guns. Laying down barbed wire to of course deny heavy cover to the Americans in the future, although at the same time taking this strategic point wouldn't be bad either. More Volksgrenadiers arriving at this stage. Nothing else going on. And in the American base we're seeing more riflemen arriving. 3 teams of riflemen. Of course, some of all that manpower had to go to rather reinforce them, which of course wasn't quite fortunate for him. More barbed wire being laid down, in fact, to sort of protect the southern approach. Although this is still open, but it's certainly going to make it a bit harder to just run straight at this strategic point. Rather interesting, actually. And American forces are swinging hard towards the west. And we'll probably be seeing right here that they'll be going for this strategic point, of course, since, as some of you might be noting, it's rather unguarded, but I think Amagand is rather realizing something's up and moving towards there as well. It will be enough. It will be too late, I fear, in this case. Riflemen taking a few shots, but they do manage to take this point. Now the Americans are advancing through here, taking the strategic point, and Amagand's forces are completely out of step to actually deal with this. And will have to make a counterattack, but they will have to do so from a point where it's much too open, and they won't be able to really find any good positions. Volksgrenadiers getting rushed by flamethrowers just as they're trying to take the cover. Oh dear. MG42 opening up, MP40's joining in as well. And there we go, a rather nice flank from the south. Engineer team cut down, but riflemen are getting the drop on the MG42, sending it running away. Excellent flanking maneuver right there. Leaving behind only the Volksgrenadiers to hold the line. Riflemen are advancing. The MP40 equipped ones are a bit out in the open, but so are the rifle equipped ones. Riflemen staying at range from the MP40s. This is good. Staying in heavy cover. The Volksgrenadiers are suffering losses. They will have to pull back. More riflemen arriving, meaning 4 rifleman teams. For Mr. Tommyreloaded. I do believe Reloaded is actually a clan, come to think of it. And we see the MG42 returning to the fun. Nothing else though going on for Amagand. Wait, looks like he's gone for the skirmish phase. A creek barracks going up. Of course, he hasn't been seeing any BARs as of yet, so he's probably expecting something in the style of an M8 to actually be happening, which is probably not a bad idea. Of course, this could all be a ruse, and we might be seeing some BARs. Yes, indeed. So Amagand will certainly be a bit off there, although these certain early losses he's gotten against the Americans will certainly be helpful. And a mine was hit here. Good show by Amagand, mining this area. Rather expecting, of course, he can't really hold it, at least not easily, in which case mining it down will make it a lot harder to take for the Americans. And of course, engineers forced to clear out wire to actually render this cover operable. And of course, they won't be able to do anything else, but still, good, he's actually trying to do so. And there we go. Minesweeper equipped as well. Seeing one mine, he's probably expecting more. This is also good. Volksgrenadier charge again under the cover of the MG42. These riflemen now getting BARs, but fortunately, although they did get 2 Volksgrenadiers before they were forced to make a very hasty retreat. Riflemen advancing. Volksgrenadiers laying down fresh barbed wire, though you should be careful, since of course you will be an easier target. There we go. Volksgrenadier is down. Lots of firepower being amassed by the American riflemen. Another Volksgrenadier down, trying to take the point, and of course that also makes you an easier target, although not quite as much as trying to build something. Being behind only 1 team, and they are taking rather extraordinary losses as well. And we're seeing grenades as well. Looks like Mr. Tommyreloaded is going for the strategy of lots of riflemen. Lots of really powerfully equipped riflemen, meaning grenades. And there we go. A good flanking. He's not hitting from one direction, he's hitting from 2, meaning the MG42 can't possibly cover both teams. And there we go, forced retreat, but grenadiers are arriving at this very moment. More solid infantry to plug up this sort of mess. Riflemen are themselves taking some losses, down to 4 men. How shall this exchange go? Grenadiers are certainly holding out nicely, and looks like a stick grenade being thrown right at the riflemen. Oh dear, the entire rifleman team was lost right there. Good show by Mr. Amagand. His grenadiers were able to kill 6 riflemen, 8 riflemen in fact. These grenadiers already having quite the effect, and again, yes, grenadiers are quite strong infantry and should certainly not be underestimated in any kind or manner. Volksgrenadiers are reinforcing, so the MG42 looks like it's been given a medic kit as well. And looks like he's going for this strategic cutoff point. And Amagand is also going for the fuel points, rather denying them to the Americans. This is a good move. Since of course less fuel means of course Less vehicles, less upgrades for the supply yard, less everything. Americans advancing right out in the middle of the open road though, and of course they're finding the cover cut off by barbed wire, but a grenade is thrown at the Volksgrenadiers. Oh dear, Amagand was too slow to retreat, and he suffered some heavy losses to the grenade. More troops are arriving, and engineers are pushing onwards in the east, denying this territory to the Wehrmacht as well, meaning of course none has actually control of these points, really, or at least, well, they have control, but they aren't getting anything out of it. Americans advancing from the south. MG42 is nowhere to be seen. More grenadiers arriving on the field, heading towards the east, engaging the engineers right there. Riflemen are swinging heavily towards the east. Looks like they might be able to get these grenadiers. Could be the plan. Of course, if the grenadiers retreat in time, it won't do much. But on the other hand, if Amagand is too slow, he will be ending up with some dead grenadiers. But slowly pulling them back instead. Riflemen continuing the hunt with a BARs blazing, and of course, grenadiers can't really fire backwards, so they're not really going to be winning this fight. And now the riflemen are having the advantage. Grenade thrown. Oh dear, down to 3 men, 2 men. Oh dear, they're getting gunned down on the retreat, and a grenadier team is lost, slaughtered. Volksgrenadiers catching, and grenadiers catching another rifleman team though in the east flank as it was trying to hook up with its other friends. And the riflemen are getting torn up to bits while the Volksgrenadiers with MP40s right up close. And the riflemen in the north are retreating, as well as an MG42 sits up in the building as well. And let us go switch over to Amagand. In fact, is there any doctrine choices as of yet? Yes, indeed. Looks like he's gone for terror, hoping to strike fear into the enemies of the fatherland. Pack 38 ready, expecting any sort of armored business. We're seeing a weapon support center going up, though so far this is rather of an infantry fight, and looks like Tommyreloaded is taking the steps a bit further, perhaps getting something that can deal a bit more better with the forces of infantry and such. Might also be getting a mortar to bombard this position, could be nice. American riflemen going for this point. And currently the Americans do hold most of the map, meaning things are a bit unfortunate for Amagand. But he's bravely holding out, but for how long, of course, will be another question. And will he be able to break out from this holding out? I cannot say. And grenadiers coming under heavy fire. Riflemen are advancing once more, flanking through the east. Engineers going for the barbed wire. Engineers heading in through here as well. Really going to occupy the attention of the MG42. Not a bad idea. Cutting some barbed wire there, and there we go. Engineers have captured the attention of the MG42. This could be an excellent time to attack from the south. And by that I mean actually doing something. And looks like further mines have been laid down. Engineers coming under fire, losing 1 man, retreating. Another engineer loss. No, the riflemen are not launching an attack, rather sadly. Just taking the fuel point. And now, how are they attacking? No, they're trying to take points rather than attacking, and this is most unfortunate. Rather than attacking, he's just standing about taking points. That's a really unfortunate method right there. And looks like the assault phase has been reached. Infantry veterancy 2 on the way, making the Volksgrenadiers and Grenadiers much tougher. And looks like this cutoff point might be taken. Yes, indeed. But the engineers might not make it. No, indeed, they were lost. Riflemen getting gunned down by pioneers. No, they both run away. Can't really help but feel this was a wasted opportunity to really knock out this point by the Americans, but rather he felt more interested in taking points. And looks like a victory point was taken by the Americans right down there in the south. Volksgrenadiers charging these BR-equipped riflemen. And the Volksgrenadiers are taking losses as they are standing out in the open against the BARs. While the Americans do have light cover. Riflemen forced to retreat, and yes, indeed, with heavy losses, leaving behind only 1 team of riflemen. Volksgrenadiers moving in to take the southern fuel point. This one being maintained for Uncle Sam. Looks like more grenadiers are on the way. Constant flow of grenadiers to replace the ones lost to Amagand. And riflemen are engaging these Volksgrenadiers. A grenade being lobbed at them. Oh dear. Volksgrenadier team might be lost. Yes, indeed. Gunned downing with only 3 infantry teams since one is a grenadier team. Panzertrek's on the way. He's rather expecting some sort of vehicular action, but no, a sniper is instead going to be what he's going to get. Veteran support units, increasing the accuracy of units, and propaganda war. interesting moves right there. Of course, he might be going for the king tank, but then again, he might also be expecting some sort of blocked action, in which case a propaganda war will be good to put a stop to that. Riflemen advancing in larger numbers, BARs equipped, snipers ready, and some such. Grenadiers retreating. A bit of quiet right there, and of course, as I might have been forgetting to mention because I wasn't quite aware, it's apparently the anniversary of Company of Heroes. 5 years of Company of Heroes. Quite amazing, quite fantastic. Oh dear, grenades being exchanged, and heavy losses to both. But the Grenadiers are forced to retreat. Grenadiers are out in the open, though, very bad. And for those interested in the anniversary, there's a small interview on the Company of Heroes main page. Has a bit of early footage of different kinds, sort of a pre-production stuff to sort of show off to any people at THQ. This is sort of what we're planning to do. Plus some other bits, rather interesting stuff actually. I'd certainly recommend to have a look at it if you're interested in Company of Heroes in general. Pioneers heading towards the west, perhaps once more going for this point, which is still not mined actually. Would perhaps be an interesting move to mine it, since of course he ought to be aware that, sorry, I'm still a bit tired, that this is where he goes to harass, and of course putting down a mine to stop that is going to be rather a nice move there. Instead he's going for this fuel point himself, and the Americans are charging a sniper, getting down one grenadier. Mines being laid down. German sniper moving in as well. And the American snipers already taking quite a beating though. No medic stations though for the Americans. Rather slow infantry fight at the moment. Volksgrenadier gets sniped, veterancy 1, and shot through the face by the German sniper. Good show there, and looks like the battle phase has been reached. So Sturm Armory will be ignored. Instead we will be seeing a Panzer Command, most likely. Not unusual for people to skip the Sturm Armory. It's either that or they skip the Krieg barracks and then go for stormtroopers to rather act as their anti-tank assets. But no, he's escaping the Sturm Armory. He's going straight for the Panzers. German troops right in the middle of everything. Volksgrenadiers taking some losses and hang on. Need to have a look at. And yes, indeed, frame rates are looking a bit more stable. Was just experiencing a small drop. And there we go again. Oh dear. Let us try again. No idea why it's suddenly experiencing a drop in frame rate, although I usually find it has something to do with fraps.
Losing a sector.
Oh well. Fraps can be a bit of a times of a hog. But Pioneers coming under fire, trying to connect this fuel point with the fatherland, but no. American riflemen put a stop to that rather quickly. Looks like a German counterattack going through the center here. Volksgrenadiers making a run for it, while snipers and grenadiers advance on the American positions. Lots of BARs making it a lot easier for them, and propaganda war going off, telling those dastardly Americans that they are outnumbered, outgunned, and smell of something very nasty. But we are seeing suppressive fire from the riflemen, putting a stop to this grenadier charge rather nicely. Looks like the grenadiers now are getting sniped as well. German sniper was hoping to put a stop to the American sniper, but no luck. And now the grenadiers are just suffering, but they are getting unpinned now. And looks like the German sniper managed to reel himself. That was a bit unfortunate. Grenadiers need to retreat, and the riflemen are doing so as well. And the American sniper slowly getting out of there as well, not really wanting to get sniped in the face or caught by any grenadiers and punched in the face. Always in the face with those snipers. Looks like an American mortar is in fact on the way. Quite interesting. MP40 equipped Volksgrenadiers holding back these riflemen. And a grenade is thrown, but the Volksgrenadiers do take minimal losses, as the Americans are taking heavier losses to the submachine guns of the Wehrmacht. Maschinenpistolen 40. More grenadiers arriving, extolling for the fatherland, always good. to hear such enthusiasm from your troops. Engineers going for the central victory point. False grenadiers could be counter-attacking, so could some grenadiers. Looks like the American assault is moving in, and the mortar is opening up on something. Right here, this is not a bad move. In fact, of course, it's going to put a stop to the MG42. MG42 maneuvering about, but coming still under fire from the mortar. And this is really going to put on the pressure of the Wehrmacht troops, as the mortar should be able to constantly bombard them if it has been placed correctly. Grenades being thrown by the riflemen, but they're getting stuck. Gunned down, slaughtered. Oh dear. And it seems the mortar's just out of range. MG42 though taking losses. American sniper clears out that machine gun, and the American mortar is doing nothing. Or is it? Grenadiers recruiting. More riflemen moving in. Still no medic station for the Americans, considering he has so many infantry units. That would actually have been a pretty good investment. Mr. Amagand floating a bit of resources, although he might be getting a Panzer soon. Yes, indeed. Panzer IV on the way. Part of the 2nd Panzer Division, of course. We're suddenly putting the fear of the Wehrmacht into those Americans, and once more experiencing a drop of frame rate.
The Americans are capturing a sector.
Well, hopefully it should stay stable for a bit longer.
The enemy advances.
Bit frustrating, but not much I can do at this stage, except reboot the entire computer and having to start through on this. We should rather not. Engineers once more going for this cutoff point. There's a lot of harassment going on by these two players. And now the Americans are making a small breakthrough. Riflemen taking up positions here. Sniping going on against the Grenadiers. And of course, one thing to note, a Veteran C2 Grenadier is actually a pretty sniperable target. In fact, they are easier to hit. In fact, they can easily be sniped and practically always will be on the retreat. Keep that in mind. Elite armor, while it has some advantages, also has some disadvantages, and for example makes them easier targets to flamethrowers and snipers. And no doctrine as of yet for the American commander. Grenades thrown at the riflemen, causing some losses. No doctrine though. He could go infantry, he could go airborne. Some nice targets right here. Riflemen taking heavy losses. American sniper opening up. Grenadiers getting gunned down, and looks like the 1st Panzer IV has arrived on the field. Americans are retreating after a propaganda war. And a Grenadier team was lost though. More riflemen moving in. And the American mortar is somewhere firing away. Grenadiers snipe, but the Panzer IV moves in. The Panzer IV, Panzerkampfwagen 4, workhorse of the German Panzer forces.
Sector being captured.
Forcing the entire American force into retreat, and of course this rather catches Tommyreloaded in a spot of troubles, and of course he's got absolutely nothing to prepare him for this. So it's rather forced to a sort of quick solution. Airborne company or doctrine calling in the 82nd and some of their anti-tank guns to really reinforce his lines. Mortar though rather exposed. The Panzer IV is on the hunt. This is not going to end up well for the mortar, I fear.
Enemy unit down.
One lost, although the mortar perhaps manly killed something. Anti-tank gun opens up on the Panzer IV. We'll be seeing armor-piercing rounds as they do a lot of damage. Yes, there we go, down to 1/3 health. Nice shooting by that anti-tank gun, but the Panzer IV manages to escape. Grenadiers and Pioneers might want to support it, and the Pioneers in particular might want to actually begin repairing it before the anti-tank guns moving in for another shot.
All I know is I have a rifle and it ain't for looks.
Fox Grenadiers on the move, might be able to catch that anti-tank gun since currently it's unguarded, but no dual snipers. My goodness, he really likes his snipers. That's so far 3 snipers, 1 lost, 2 still alive. That's over 1,000 manpower expended on snipers. He's got a lot of fuel, so he could have been using that manpower for, say, I don't know, vehicles, tanks, something. Engineers trying to take this point, but getting machine gunned.
Supply lines are broken.
Mortar opening up once more on this point. And looks like the MG42 is getting out, but it's taking heavy losses. 2 men lost. The last one making a haphazard run for it. German sniper opening up, rather exposing him to American snipers. House getting blown to bits ever slowly. Quite explosive. Grenadiers on the move. The pack so far hasn't really got much of a use. And Americans trying to take the point, but they have not counted in the Grenadiers. And the Panzer IV, which is now moving in to put a stop to that nonsense. American snipers gunning down the German Grenadiers. The German sniper was not quick enough. Panzer IV moving in to open up. Anti-tank on firing away. And we are seeing a propaganda wall right on the snipers, making things clearer for the rest. The German sniper was forced to retreat as well as he was caught out in the open by the American rifleman. Oh dear, he might be gunned down. No, he makes it out of there. German Grenadiers moving in, and the American rifleman standing a bit too much out in the open. But they managed to kill the sniper, gaining veterancy too. Quite lovely right there. American forces pushing on in the west, using riflemen, not engineers, but another Panzer IV has arrived to put a stop to those Yankees, those cowboys. And managed to kill 2 outright with its main gun. American mortar continues to fire away at the suspected German positions. Panzer IV having a bit of fun in the west. Nothing to stop it. And Veterancy 1 increasing, well, giving them damage reduction of 25%. Always a good upgrade. Very nice one in fact. And looks like Mr. Amagand's 2nd Panzer troops are having some funny ideas, moving straight into the American base. Opening up on the troops right there. Airborne now being dropped though. Could be getting some recoilless rifles here. Indeed going to use all that munition for something a bit more useful. But still taking losses to the Panzer IV. Rifleman charging in. And he has sticky bombs now, which rather means that Mr. Amagand has to be careful with his Panzer IV, although generally always should be. Recoilless rifles firing away, not doing much damage due to the damage reduction bonus of the Panzer Veterancy 1.
We can airdrop resources now.
And what else is going on? More veterancy on the way. Americans pushing through all over.
Welcome to France.
Interesting, interesting. Holding most of the map. In fact, now Amagand has been pushed back, but his Panzer IV on the move, taking a few shots from those recoilless rifles. Amagand pushing through in the west. MG42 covering here, but not much traction. I hope the center, which is a bit unfortunate. Looks like supply drops are being thrown in. Riflemen taking a few losses directly to the face. Grenadiers and Panzer IV moving in. And other riflemen moving in to support. Snipers could also be doing some damage. Oh dear, looks like they will be doing so. In fact, Grenadiers taking losses. 2 Grenadiers lost. They will have to retreat. Grenades being dropped and then run away. Looks like the Panzer IV is making a daring charge in. Veterancy 2, although the main gunner won't do much there. In fact, he was killed right there. And it's right now surrounded. The other Panzer IV, though, could be providing support. Yes, indeed. But the anti-tank gun turns about. Having a nice shot off the rear of the Panzer IV. There we go. Mortar rounds flying awfully close. Another sticky bomb on the Panzer IV. Oh dear. But he managed to clear out the anti-tank gun, clearing out the way for the second one. Destroyed engine on the Panzer IV. Drop of frame rate once more. Riflemen taking heavy losses, but they are still alive. Might not be so for the Panzer IV very soon. Second one moves in, and the mortar knocks out the Panzer IV. A hit to the engine compartment, and the Panzer IV is out of control. Volksgrenadier is charging in. Mortar is once more exposed. Might want to get out, and right there actually. Rifleman right there having done absolutely nothing, curiously enough.
Enemy unit down.
And the Panzer IV is lost. A frame rate drop. Veterancy 1 for the mortar. Getting some good shots on those Volksgrenadiers right there in the center of everything. Airborne and Riflemen moving in. Volksgrenadiers are rather finding themselves in a nasty position. Sniper sniping from behind. Oh dear, those Volksgrenadiers are getting slaughtered. And a King Tiger, Königs Tiger from the Panzerabteilung 503 moving in, opening up with its high velocity 88mm gun, slaughtering the American troops, knocking out the anti-tank gun just as quickly as it was recruited. Mortar though firing away, hoping to perhaps hit something. German troops at all sites now suffering rather heavily from harassment from the Americans, but at the same time though, due to rather heavy focus from the Americans, they have been able to take back the west. But now the Grenadiers are getting rather heavily sniped, and riflemen are counter-attacking to take back what was lost. Airborne getting reinforced. And I do believe it is time for the mid-game analysis, and yes indeed this is going to be a rather long game. But what is the situation? Well, currently the things has been rather shifting about. Either the Wehrmacht has been holding, or the Americans has been holding much of the map. But at the same time, either side managed to rather break through and put a stop to that. The Panzer division so far have lost one Panzer IV, but they have another Panzer IV and a King Tiger to make up for that. In the meanwhile, though, while the Americans were rather focused on the center, the Germans were pushing through in the west, but the Americans are moving in to stop that quickly. So for how long that will last, I cannot say. The Americans are lacking a bit in armor or vehicles, and rather in anti-tank assets, only having one airborne team with recoilless rifles, which they won't be able to do much against that King Tiger. Of course, he has sticky bombs as well, but that rather requires getting close to all of this high explosive fire, which usually doesn't end up very well. Of course, well, currently the Americans will need to sort of take out this, since this is rather what Amagand's plan seems to be hitching on so far. His infantry getting slaughtered too quickly. On the other hand, Amagand needs to keep this alive, and he needs to sort of get those snipers and perhaps get something else as well. And let's return to the fight. Mortar rounds flying around the King Tiger, but it cares not. Although there's a story from Operation Market Garden where a King Tiger was in fact knocked out as a lucky shot from mortar round hit the engine compartment. And what is this? We're seeing smoke. Ladies and gentlemen, this is in fact smoke. He's actually covering up the approach to the King Tiger, allowing his riflemen to get close with sticky bombs, because the King Tiger can't see the riflemen through the smoke, or for that matter the recoilless rifles, which seems to be actually accurate through the smoke, rather interestingly. But still, this is not a bad move. In fact, forces the King Tiger away. Good move, Mr. Tommyreloaded. Oh, frame rate drop again. Recoilless rifles firing away at the King Tiger, but from the cover of the smoke. Good move there. Another Panzer IV on the field, strengthening the Panzer forces. Riflemen are beyond the smoke though, and more smoke being dropped in fact. Loves the smoke, it seems. Another frame rate drop, god damn it. Riflemen coming under fire, but once more the smoke settles in, allowing the riflemen to move close with the sticky bombs. Quite sneaky. And there we go, sticky bombing the King Tiger relatively safely in what would otherwise have been a complete suicide mission. And the King Tiger has a damaged engine, but the Germans are pushing through in the east, while the Americans once more countering through the west, and it is returned to Amagand. Another propaganda war. Airborne might want to get out of there. Looks like Pioneers on the way to repair some of all that. German snipers opening up on the Grenadiers. Heavy losses, they need to retreat. There we go. Other Grenadiers moving in, so it's a Panzer IV. And riflemen are taking some severe losses to all of this, but they do get a sticky bomb off on the Panzer IV. Grenadiers counter-attacking. And oh dear, the Panzer IV is caught right in the middle of everything. Unfortunately, I do seem to believe that Amagand does have some rather unfortunate Panzer tactics. Although trying to clear out this airborne, the airborne might clear it out first, or so might the mortar. Again. Yes, indeed, a direct hit to the rear armor. Airborne taking 2 heavy losses and getting awfully close hit by the Panzer IV. And the Airborne who dropped in last, apparently the only survivor, knocks out the Panzer IV with the recoilless rifle hit to the rear. Quite unfortunate for Amagand, and again he was sort of moving in his Panzer IV without support, and of course that's the thing you don't want to do. King Tiger in dire need of repairs. And currently things are looking rather bleak once more for Amagand. Rather coiled up with his own base, but he does not give up. He charges once more. These riflemen, though, rather awfully wounded, could be lost on the retreat to the veteran grenadiers. No, apparently the rifleman makes it out of there, laughing all the way. Although could be from sheer terror, having been the only survivor. And this sort of random frame rate drop is rather the reason I don't want to cast a live game, that is, sort of show you how I play, because if I sort of experience this during a game, I'm going to have to immediately stop, otherwise I'm going to be lagging and I might simply be kicked. So keep that in mind. Airborne and sniper are advancing. Riflemen advancing as well. Looks like to be another major assault, and yes indeed we are seeing the smoke for it. Amagand not really reacting, it seems. But rather rare we're seeing this much smoke being used by anyone. But I'm certainly not going to be complaining. But the smoke cover is not far enough. They will have to be right in front of it, and a propaganda wall though puts a stop to it. Quite unfortunate. But certainly not a bad idea, but the propaganda wall puts a stop to it all. But more mortars are perhaps on the way. No, it was there, it was just sort of hidden behind the machine gun, making for a rather curious looking contraption. BAR still left behind, not picked up by anyone. German troops once more moving through the west. King Tiger getting repaired. Looks like the Panzer IV is once more on the move. Not a lot of things left, and smoke cover going down.
We are losing ground.
Pushing through in the east. Germans moving through the center, through the smoke. And getting sniped once more with the German sniper. Yes, indeed, he counter-snipes one of the American snipers finally. And the Grenadiers and Sniper are forced to retreat once more as American troops are counterattacking. More airborne, in fact. German armor opening up on all of these airborne, who are firing away with all of their recoilless rifles. The King Tiger's not really able to maneuver away since his engine is still damaged. Recoilless rifles hitting the rear armor, but they are taking some losses, turning its frontal armor too. This is good. There we go, heavy losses for the airborne. Down to one team, 2 men for one team. The other ones are still hiding out in the barn. American riflemen charging ahead, hoping to get off a sticky bomb, but no! Getting torn to bits by the Panzer IV and all of its fire. Instead they go in for the King Tiger. Oh dear. More smoke being dropped. Giving the airborne some cover. And I'm rather getting the impression that recoilless rifles aren't in fact affected by smoke cover, which is rather interesting. Or perhaps they are. And American Sniper Veterancy 3, my goodness. Getting the Pioneer team, but he gets stopped by the German sniper most heroically. This King Tiger needs to get out of there. It's getting continually hammered away by those recoilless rifles. It cannot survive much. No idea why he had it around for so long. More smoke being dropped. Oh dear. This is really a bold move, but at the same time, due to the smoke, they can actually stand it. This is an absolutely good use of smoke in the assault. And the King Tiger is lost, and Veterancy 3 for these airborne, making them some very fiendish airborne rather quickly. Good usage of smoke, very good. In fact, I certainly recommend people noting this and trying to sort of replicate it in some way, since it can making assaulting a position that much easier. Riflemen getting ready. Once more, still no medic stations. I'm rather missing a medic station or a medic bunker from the Germans. King Tiger lost, much tragically. Some pioneers could be salvaging it for munitions though. And he could be getting a firestorm as well to sort of help him out. Grenadiers right down the middle under the aegis of the mortar, taking quite some fire from it. Pulling out, this is good. Panzer IV advancing while another one is underway. Riflemen getting sniped. Both sides though with some heavy losses. But things are certainly not looking good for Amagand. Panzer IV being hunted down, getting covered in sticky bombs once more. But the riflemen are making a mismove there, them charging right into all of this without smoke. And they are simply getting torn to bits. And lost. Small victory there for Amagand by the other riflemen there, but they are getting gunned down as well, suppressed by the MG42. Mortar opening up though.
42!
Mortar hitting the MG42, but the MG42 advances. So do the rest of the German forces, but the sniper is rather exposed. But the Panzer IV is on the move. And the MG42 and Panzer IV simply annihilate these riflemen, sending the last few survivors running in complete terror. While Airborne are getting ready, including the Infantry 3 Airborne. And they of course will be quite lethal. Their recoilless rifles doing quite a bit more damage. No armored skirts though for Amagand's armor, rather interestingly. Mortar knocked out. Airborne moving in. Recoilless rifles opening up. And there we go. Veterans 3 recoilless rifles are able to do quite a bit of damage. And of course they're also quite accurate. But a propaganda war puts a stop to the airborne threat, at least for now. Not salvaging the wreck of the Panzer, the King Tiger. Grenadiers are advancing through this. BAR still not picked up by anyone. There we go. Panzer IV on the move. Grenadiers in the west opening up on these riflemen who are rather wounded. Need to get back, and Tommyreloaded really needs to get a medic station up. And he might also have wanted to upgrade this supply yard while he still had the advantage. Otherwise he's rather getting throttled in upkeep, which is of course rather draining him of manpower. Although Amagand is also suffering a bit, but probably not as badly as Mr. Tommyreloaded. Looks like Veterans 3 is on the way for the Panzers, giving them armored skirts very soon, which is going to decrease the damage of the recoilless rifles, which is certainly going to be helpful against the Veterans 3 ones. But it's also going to protect against another drop in frame rate, my goodness. Panzer IV opening up. And recoilless rifles blasting away. This Panzer IV is looking awfully damaged. Main gun destroyed. And another American sniper on the field though. Airborne getting suppressed behind the wreck of the Panzer IV and getting sniped as well. The Airborne do manage to get out there, and they can't get reinforced on the field. That's something to remember, of course. And looks like a mortar team was put together here as well. So we'll probably be seeing more smoke as another assault is launched. And it is returned to Tommyreloaded, who also has access to bombing runs. My goodness, he could be using those, or a strafing run, but he seems utterly unable to do so. Panzer IV taking quite a few shots, but of course due to the armored skirts, takes a lot less. And the Airborne are forced to retreat, but still so many munitions as he's not using them. That's terrible resource administration, I have to say. A simple bombing run could really do a lot of damage, or even a strafing run if used properly. Rifleman getting reinforced, and apparently he has a higher amount of resources going in that is lower upkeep than the German commander. Interesting.
We're losing a fuel
Panzer IV charging in against the mortar, nothing to protect it. Of course, he's rather realizing something's dropping smoke. What is it? Knock it out. Airborne moving in once more. Still no bombing runs or anything actually. No, not even a reconnaissance run to sort of get an idea of the German positions. So while he's good at using smoke, he's rather bad at getting everything else in, which is rather quite a problem. Otherwise, he could actually be doing quite some damage to Amagand. Instead, he's floating 700 munitions. Bloody hell. Airborne advancing. Nothing as of yet from strafing. All bombing runs again. I mean, one bombing run here could do quite a bit. Instead, the airborne are simply getting torn to bits by all of the fire. Being directed against him, firing up though. Not quite keen on retreating, but still. Bombing run or strafing run could have done quite a bit there. Mortar recruit. Sniper opening up on the MG42. German sniper fires away, but misses the American. As in, he missed him, not like he's, oh dear, where is that American sniper? I do miss him around here, it's so lonely.
Airborne, ready for duty.
It looks like the airborne are getting ready for another assault.
Krauts are grabbing our territory.
Though I still have no idea why he's not. There we go, a bombing run. Although he perhaps should have waited to where things were a bit more clumped up. Bombing run hits. And that was just a bit mismanaged right there. He should have waited until the Panzer force were close to each other. Might have been some problem getting away. And it looks like the Knights crossholders have arrived. Moving ahead with their assault rifles. Airborne charging in right through the smoke. And of course the MG42 is unable to suppress them. Assault being used. That was actually a pretty clever move there. Grenades being dropped against the Knights Cross, doing some damage. Veteran C3 Knights Cross, very tough bastards. And now going after the mortar team, but they're taking some losses themselves. No, they're going after the sniper, or at least exposing him to the German. And there we go, forcing away and slaying him. The entire American force is being slaughtered right here. Still no strafing runs or bombing runs, which could be of help, although the Knights crossholders might be lost. Panzer force are moving in with a vengeance. Mortar once more, rather exposed, retreating. Will he make it out of there? No, slaughtered. Riflemen getting reinforced. And so far, Amagand's bet to sticking on Veteran 3 Panzer force has certainly been working out quite nicely.
Front shifting. Krauts are grabbing territory.
And I can't help but feel that Tommyreloaded's problem is rather the fact that he isn't using any sort of support assets like, say, bombing runs or saving runs rather well enough, although he's making good use of smoke rounds, which is quite commendable and certainly something I'd like other people to do a bit more, in fact. Panzer force once more getting reinforced, and my goodness, 39 kills. This is certainly a Panzer IV ace, a slaughterer of allies, hero of the fatherland, all that and more. Quite spectacular, 39 kills. And finally getting a supply yard upgrade. That's about bloody damn time.
We got our flamethrower.
Pushing through in the west once more. These grenadiers with Veteran 3 facing off against Veteran 1. Rifleman grenade thrown, but oh dear, that was a miscast. And another smoke cover being laid down. Looks like another assault in the making. Another Panzer III, a nice target there for a bombing run if someone was ever to decide to use it properly. Airborne charging in. Riflemen as well. MG42 opening up, but of course due to the smoke cover won't be doing much. And a propaganda wall, but due to the fact he wasn't completely blocked up this time around, he's actually able to get it off a bit better. A bombing run right here could be doing quite a bit. Grenades thrown right into the path of the grenadiers. And looks like the airborne made a run for it. Still no bombing runs. That would really have been lovely to see against those Panzer force all clumped up. Very nice target all on a row for that P-57 Thunderbolt. And another supply yard upgrade, really going for that now. Perhaps realizing he ought to have been having that a lot earlier. There you go. Another damn frame rate drop. And then another. God damn it, no idea why it's doing it, but I do believe it's some problem with flaps itself. Since if I reboot the computer, it won't do that again. So that's at least my theory.
Airborne ready.
Airborne getting ready. Panzer force advancing, and certainly looks like Mr. Amagand holds the definite advantage now. Tearing apart the airborne. Knights Cross moving in as well. Clearing out that mortar team. Airborne finding themselves out in the open against the Panzer force. Smoke being dropped. Engineers counter-attacking with flamethrowers. And looks like another bombing run. not... Oh dear, that was poorly aimed, and generally the key is again sort of with grenades, you want to sort of be hitting the path you're expecting them to take, not where they're currently standing about. But I have certainly seen air bombing runs used to quite a good effect, just not here, sadly. Grenadiers out in the open against flamethrowers, but the flamethrowers themselves are taking heavy losses as an MG42 and a Panzer IV covers them. The Panzer IV's firing away. 46 kills, my goodness. That Panzer IV has put a stop to a platoon on its own. Perhaps even 2. No, wait, just 1 platoon. Frame rate. Airborne taking quite some losses. Sticky bombs being used against this Panzer IV. Oh dear, don't die, Panzer IV. No, the armored skirts protect, but an airborne hit. No, and we see Propaganda War saving the Panzer IV ace. Despite it's taking quite a beating, the main gun is gone. The engine is on its last legs, and the armored skirts are certainly also looking quite beaten up. Grenadiers back at the base reinforcing.
Airborne. Hope Jerry don't
Rather
mind us
interesting how
dropping
this
in.
fight has been shifting back and forth.
Airborne.
But sadly looks like the Americans' major problem was partly a not good enough use of support assets and not really defending him. I mean, he didn't really put up any sort of mines or barbed wire or tank traps. Either of those could really have made it harder for Amagand to actually just charge ahead. Sadly enough.
Rifle squad has the objective. Airborne rifles.
And also he should have gotten a medic station, no doubt about that. That would also really suited his rather infantry-heavy approach. Grenadiers and riflemen exchanging a bit of fire in the west. The veteran grenadier retreating. In fact, retreating completely. All seems a bit quiet. Let us speed things up a bit then. And there we go, on the move.
Paratroopers on point.
Rather interesting. And Knights Cross soldiers. No, they're not getting bombarded. It's another smoke cover. Snoke. No idea what Snoke is. Perhaps it's sort of the cheaper version of smoke. Well, we can't afford smoke, but we can afford Snoke. Yes, but the enemy can see us and it looks red. Shut up. And there we go, advancing through the smoke. Sticking to it very clever. Although he's clumped up, which again makes him a very good target for a propaganda war. Hearing the propaganda speaker go on. And there we go, propaganda war. Rather the inspiration for the name of this cast, actually. And Knights Crossers charging in and getting pinned down by a strafing run, my goodness. And looks like one was in fact killed outright. Panzer IV's moving in. Not to veteran though, which is still receiving repairs. It's taking such a beating that 2 pioneer teams working away are not able to finish it fast enough. Knights Cross holders forced away in a huge force of American troops. Let us return to Amagand. Panzer IV's firing away from the 2nd Panzer Division. And looks like the Airborne are moving through there, hoping to take all these Panzer IV's right on. Mortar rounds flying through the air, knocking out dirt. Looks like the Airborne are hoping to take on these Panzer IV's right on. Recoilless rifles flying, doing a bit of damage, but again, due to the armored skirts and of course the Veterans 1 bonus, they take a lot less damage. But the Airborne do not give up, moving through the smoke, although the 3 Panzer IV's are simply slaughtering them, delivering so many munitions upon them that even the smoke is not able to do enough. They're simply too packed up to really avoid any of the fire being unloaded by the Panzer IV's, and the Veteran 3 Airborne are taking extreme losses. Oh dear. And this would have been a nice target for a bombing run, but he doesn't have the munitions, having wasted his bombing runs on less fruitful targets. Airborne getting simply cut down right there in the center. But still more smoke to keep this up, trying to secure the central victory point. Certainly at least bold, not giving up, and he's certainly really trying with the smoke cover, which is of course very good. But Tommyreloaded's forces are taking an absolute beating. And looks like Tommyreloaded's forces are not doing too well. In fact, grenades being dropped, but they are simply not able to survive this amount of fire. And 56 kills, my goodness. An anti-tank gun dropped down, but that is simply way too late. He should have been driving that earlier, perhaps instead of going for all those snipers, but there you go. And now the Knights crossholders are moving in with their assault rifles, or not. Can't say. Germans advancing at all points. Mr. Tommyreloaded's lines has completely, utterly disintegrated. There's nothing really holding back an armored assault by those three Panzer forces, except the fact that they have taken an awful lot of damage. This one still not looking too good, except for the fact that it's killed 56 American troops. Now all three victory points are in the hands of the Wehrmacht's 2nd Panzer Division. Strafing run moving in on the Grenadiers, pinning them, killing one.
Losing territory,
but not really quite effectful. Moving in for this sort of cut-off point, right behind the MG42, but Knights crossholders are moving in to put a stop to that. Later Kreuz taking fire, they report. Once more the smoke, ever smoke. I have never seen this much smoke actually being used, and certainly not in this manner. Absolutely inspiring, to say anything. Pioneers charging in, Infantry 2 scorching away the Americans. And smoke is actually not a flamethrower, so in fact not affected by smoke, so that's something to keep in mind. Which of course makes engineers and pioneers excellent assault troops through the smoke. Well, anything with flamethrowers, really. And the Airborne are simply getting slaughtered by the Panzer Force. A satchel charge being used, but the Panzer Force simply moves away.
We are losing ground. The enemy has 50 points left.
It still seems to take a bit of damage from it. And the mortar's still just smoking away. I believe it's time to just sort of get this finished quickly, almost an hour long, in fact.
Our supply lines are broken. We have territory out of supply.
And there we go, playback over a victory for the 2nd Panzer Division in the face of the 4th Infantry Division. Hooray for the fatherland. And what can we learn from this? Well, we saw some rather interesting use of barbed wire in the beginning. Well, I'm not sure how to really react to it. I mean, sort of, Amagand sort of figured, well, he wants to hold in the west. He did so, got some grenadiers, but at the same time, though, his unit preservation by then sort of didn't do too well, and that rather worked against him, as the Americans were able to capitalize on this with their rather heavy infantry focus. And Amagand really didn't have anything to sort of capitalize on that until much later, when he did get the Panzer Force, and then Tommyreloaded simply wasn't prepared for that for some reason. He sort of had to rush in for Airborne, drop in some anti-tank guns, Airborne, and that sort of took care of things, at least for a while. And then it sort of devolved into a sniper war, which neither side really won for any sort of longer time. Generally there was sort of a lot of problems, and oh dear, frame rate drop. But let's ignore that. Finally the match is over. Otherwise, I mean, good usage of armor, in fact, from Amagand, although he really needed to get that King Tiger out a lot earlier. And then we saw a lot of smoke. My goodness, the amount of smoke. There's probably someone that's gotten lung cancer from all that smoke, but still very good usage, and really good using it in how it's supposed to be used when attacking positions, and that was brilliantly used. Trouble was, he didn't spread out his troops when attacking, thus making them very prime targets for a propaganda war, sending them running back to the... And that was rather the main problem of Tommyreloaded. He blobbed up. Had he not blobbed up, he might actually been doing a lot better. Had he gotten some anti-tank guns again, he probably also could have been doing a lot better. But sadly, neither of those really materialized, and he sort of just flew at it. And then lack of support assets again, not good either. Very bad. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own? This is Imperial Dane saying, try to use some smoke in the future. Cheers!